They're the Russian group that have captured the world's attention. The three women that together make up the punk band Pussy Riot have been found guilty of hooliganism after they performed a protest song in Moscow's Christ the Saviour Cathedral back in February. Their sentence: 2 years in prison. The song that got Pussy Riot into trouble started as a little-noticed YouTube video. The band defended their actions, saying the song was a punk prayer, a political act in protest against the Russian Orthodox Church's support of President Vladimir Putin. The reaction to the case in Russia has been mixed.
I think, it's definitely been an evolutionary process. When the girls first did their performance back in February, few people had any sympathy for them, but that's definitely changed over the past couple of months. I think it would still be, it's early to say that, the whole country is supporting Pussy Riot, but the fact that you do have these three young women who are under the age of 30 or 30 years old and that they've been sentenced to jail with for 2 years, that's definitely affected people's sympathies, especially given what they actually did, which was performing for just 30 seconds inside a church.
Pussy Riot have attracted support from around the world. A whole host of musicians and politicians have voiced their support for the group, including Madonna, who recently played a concert in Moscow, donning Pussy Riot's trademark balaclava and writing their name on her back. And today's verdict has been met by widespread condemnation in the international community.
Russia is a sovereign state, a sovereign democracy in the language sometimes used by supporters of and associates of Vladimir Putin, and it won't be told what to do. So Russia, in its view, is managing its courts according to its own rules, and it's delivering its verdict according to those rules. The ability of the outside world, certainly of Western powers and Western public opinion, to influence Russia is fairly limited.
The opposition in Russia, meanwhile, are torn between using the Pussy Riot case to bring Russia's flawed judicial system into focus and not upsetting the majority of their supporters, many of whom are Russian Orthodox and would have been offended by the group's views and their actions in the church.
I think the reaction within Russia is much more complex than in the West. In the West, you have all these foreign stars and the foreign media, just rallying behind the women, where in Russia, people were really offended by what they did. And also, what they represent. They're outspoken feminists, they're for gay rights, and, the Russian population is relatively conservative, even within the opposition movement. So for the opposition leaders going ahead, it's a question of using this to highlight the travesty of the Russian judicial system and kind of the unfairness and how, the Kremlin dictates prison sentences, while at the same time, not making their whole movement about Pussy Riot.
The verdict, it seems, was a foregone conclusion, given that less than 1% of cases that go to court in Russia produce a verdict of not guilty.
I don't think there is any sign whatsoever of a change in the approach to dissent. Russia, under Putin in previous guises as president and prime minister, has tolerated, certainly in its view, a certain amount of discussion and dissent. But that's where Putin wants to keep it.
The Pussy Riot case has seen rallies in support of the group in many cities across the globe, and it's focused the world's attention on Russia's judicial system. But this case is just one of many by a Russian state increasingly intolerant of dissent. Daniel Garrahan, Financial Times.